Visit forkpitch.com for curated content in a culinary marketplace.
I'm Chef Joe V for Fork Pitch, and today we're going to be talking about masa. Masa is ground up corn that is used for applications such as tamales, empanadas, and tortillas. In ancient times, corn, when it was ground, was added lime and calcium to it to detoxify it and make it potable to human beings. And masa, for me personally, as someone who's half Hispanic, grows really dear to my heart because I remember making dishes with masa in my grandma's kitchen. And if anyone has ever experienced a Hispanic grandmother's kitchen or knows anyone who makes masa from home, they know how long and how arduous this process is. So when I heard about the method of using popcorn, of all things, to make your homemade masa and heard it's very high quality, I got really excited and I had to try it myself. And today that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. In this particular method of making masa, popcorn, which is, you can see here, is boiled for 2 hours and then soaked overnight. This allows the corn to be hydrated, and you can see some of the corn kernels are actually splitting because they're so full with water. And then usually it's going to be food processed. But like many, I actually own a food processor, it's just broken. But many people don't own a food processor, so today I'm going to do it in a blender instead. And it produces the same results. It's a little more time consuming, I will fully admit, but you get a really high quality masa. And it comes out just as good as the ones that are done in the food processor. I would bet that I would put myself up against someone who's using the same technology. The other reason that I find it very important to make my own masa at home is if those store-bought products do replicate masa pretty well, you often find falter in either the flavor or in the texture. I'm Peruvian. Peruvians, we use masa less for tortillas, like some other people, and we use it more for empanadas. So when you're making an empanada, which is fully formed around an object, you really do need a little more clingy masa, and you need something that's going to hold its shape together to form and then bake up really, really nicely as well. Today I'm going to do a cheese empanada after I've ground this, and I'm going to add a little bit of lime and make it taste really, really good. For this process, I'm going to take the popcorn. It says popcorn has been boiled for 2 hours and then left to soak overnight. Then I drained off the excess liquid. I have some limes here, and that's going to also flavor the process as it's been blending. A little bit of water, a little bit of salt, also for flavoring, and the water is actually more for texture. And if you're going to be using a blender, since the blade is only on the bottom of the blender rather than all the way around like for a food processor, you don't want to put the whole thing you boiled off in the beginning. You only want to fill it up so much so that you can be sure that each corn kernel is actually coming in contact with the blade. That's about half of it for a 2-quart pot. And then I'm going to blend this and get this smooth and workable and add the water and limes as needed for the right flavors and textures and make a really nice homemade masa. When the masa has reached this point in the grinding process, which has mostly been done on low, you can see there's still some pieces intact, still some kernels, but right now it's going to need a little bit of water put in. And though traditionally people just use water, I like adding a little bit of lime juice too. So I'm probably just going to add like 2 lime wedges and 2 ounces of water. And that's just going to help it bind and blend up and actually get to the masa point where it's workable and nice. Once you get the masa to this point too, one of the problems I've noticed a lot when I've been doing this method is moisture control specifically. This one's really nice. If I had to say any critiques about it, it is a little bit too wet, but it's not a huge deal whatsoever. If your masa is too wet, you can put it in the oven, let it dry out on a really, really low temperature, and then if it's too moist, you can just add a little more water in and either work it in with your hands or reblend it. But this is good to go, and I'm going to work with it right now. The way I was taught to make empanadas is you just take the masa here and you just make a very small ball and then put it down on a sheet of parchment. And I'm going to do 2 at a time here because I've done this a couple times. If you are a little more nervous on it, you just do 1 at a time. You just want to make sure that these are both going to be evenly rolled out flat. I'm going to grab the other piece of parchment I have here, put them here. I'm just going to smush them with my hands a little bit and then make sure that they're even by rolling them out. So these are good to go. These are going to be my top and bottom. And then since this is the top one, I'm actually going to smush it out a little more just so it can kind of hug the other one. It needs to be a little wider. And then I'm going to do a little bit of Chihuahua cheese right here. Take my parchment, guide this over, flip it on top, let it fall, and then just pinch it together. Really, really nice. And as you can see, the masa is a little bit moist, as I said, so it is having a little bit of a hard time sticking together, but you just be a little patient, mold it together. And I'm not going to do any fancy patterns because I don't have a press or anything, and that is not my job in the kitchen. But it comes together, and you got a little empanada ready to go. And so I bake this bad boy off, and he'll be ready to eat. You can see right here, I'm shallow frying the empanadas. The masa's getting to that nice golden brown. I'm going to flip them in a little bit. Little pieces are broken off, but that's kind of be expected from homemade masa, but I can already tell the texture of this is just going to be amazing. These are my homemade masa empanadas, and they're very simple. These are just filled with cheese. Of course, you can fill them with pork, with beef, whatever you really want to fill an empanada with. I'm going to put a little lime on them. I put a little bit of Chihuahua cheese when they first came out of the fryer, just to give them some texture. But I'm very excited to eat these. So you can open it up and you just see that very, very nice cheese pull. Cook through, and then we taste. And this is what's so great about homemade empanadas compared to when you get homemade masa, compared to when you use like regular masa. It's that the masa itself is so lovely. Oftentimes when I'm eating empanadas or tortillas, if I don't have any more of the filling left, I just don't really eat the rest of it because it's not worth eating. It doesn't have that same flavor, that same pleasure. But this is delicious. This masa can just stand on its own. It doesn't even need the cheese filling. It's so flavorful, salty, just a touch of citrus, and it's totally worth the work being put into it to make homemade masa. And I'm a very, very happy boy. Yeah.
This video is a Fort Pitch production in conjunction with Midwest Digital AV Incorporated. Midwest Digital AV Incorporated provides audio, video, streaming, and production services throughout the Midwest. Please visit them at midwestdigitalcorp.com.